brighter than light. He'll give you strife. He's Todd. He's tall, he's mean. He's a labeling machine. He's Todd. Rides a motorbike. He'll tell you what it's like. He's Todd. Don't know what he'll say. He'll scare the kids away. He's Todd. He's Todd.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome back. We took a little bit of a respite over the 4th of July holidays. I hope everyone fared well and had a great vacation during the holidays. But man, it's good to be back. We've got a good show for you today. I'm quite surprised at the response that we got. We got some great stories that came in about labeling nightmares. And speaking of labeling nightmares, I know I've mentioned it before, but I myself was a contractor for many, many years, and out of Texas, actually. And so there's a couple of things that come to mind with labeling nightmares. Number one is that I used to follow a particular company around Texas. Now, purposely, I would high bid against them because I knew I was going to get the job afterwards. They were synonymous with mislabeling. Their labelization was horrible. And when they're out on the floor labelizing, they inevitably do it wrong. And typically the IT guys don't discover that until they go to look at a bad port or a bad node or a PC. By then they've been paid, they're off to the next job, they don't return calls. So what I would do is I would make friends and subsequently go in there and make a lot of money off of relabeling or fixing the bad labelization that they had performed. And now the nightmare story is actually to the end user, to the customer, because inevitably they would pay more. But what that means is that I'd make money up front and then obviously gain a customer. The second labeling nightmare I had was I was in Guayaquil, Ecuador. So I was relabeling at the time. They may still be the world's largest airline. But anyway, I was in Ecuador doing their gate for them, and they maybe had 24, 26 drops, something like that. And what was happening is that the rats were eating through the cable and the fiber, and so we went out and we upgraded them to 5E at that time. Believe it or not, they were on IBM Type A, Type 1 cable. And so anyway, we went out, we relabeled it, and because of customs, we couldn't bring certain tools into the country, so we ran down to the nearest Stapolitos there, and we picked up a machine like, where is it? The little guy over there, all right, which uses M series of tape, a paper tape, and they wouldn't put any type of airflow control, HVAC, into their closets, hotter than hell. And so anyway, the labels fell off. So about a week after the job, I got a call. And they said, well, your labels are falling off. Well, for me to fly to Guayaquil, Ecuador for labels, no go. So they went back to the old duct tape and Sharpie. You know, whatever works. I don't condone it, but at least they could identify it. So anyway, there's lots of labeling nightmares out there. And we have 3 finalists today. Over the past couple of days, I went through them. And again, some really good stories, some not so good. Those shall remain nameless. But anyway, these guys, they got it going on right here. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to bring each one of them on, and I'm going to ask them, obviously, who they are, where they're from, what do they do, blah, blah, blah. They'll give you your story, and then we're going to have some live voting. Yes, you guys are going to be the ones to choose who has got the best story out there. The winner will get, and I don't know if you've seen this bad boy, but the winner will get a Yeti Tundra cooler. It's about a $400 cooler. I would never pay $400 for a damn cooler, but you know what? Apparently they sell pretty well. So anyway, make sure you pay attention. Make sure you cast your vote, if you will, and then we'll close this thing out. I'll talk about the next show coming up, and the next show you can't miss. I'm telling you right now, it's a life-changing event. It's a game changer. So anyway, stay tuned for that. I'll talk more about it here in a little bit. But make sure you listen to these guys. Cast your votes, if you will. I sincerely appreciate everyone showing up today. I know that's kind of redundant. But you know what? Without further ado, let's get into the first one. And I believe we got Stuart coming on first.
Hey, how's it going, Todd?
Good, Stuart. You know what? Tell us, where you are, what you do, real brief, and then we'll get into your story. So, Stuart, it's all you, buddy.
So I am a software administrator for Old Trapper Beef Jerky. We make high-quality beef jerky products and sell nationwide. We have over 200 employees. And we're one of the largest beef jerky retailers in the country. And in my opinion, we make the best beef jerky in the world. So that's what I do. I'm
going to go on record and I'm going to say I concur with you 100%. We were talking about jerky. Yeah, we were talking about making jerky before you came on here. And, it's just near and dear. I could probably stand to not eat as much, but no, I really appreciate your goods. It is good stuff. So tell us about your labeling nightmare. Number one is tell us about the nightmare. Tell us about the possible repercussions, if there were repercussions, and how you fix this damn thing and how you're moving forward.
All right. So in May, we deployed a new warehouse management system. So our warehouse management system, the old warehouse management system didn't use labels to track our materials and products. But the new system requires a label for every pallet, every box, everything we manufacture from incoming to going out the door. So it required us to be able to print around 2,000 labels a day and to do so in a self-winding mode. So I'm a big fan. We use the Cadillac of Brother label machines. We use the TJ series that's a self-winder, and it's amazing. Yeah. So we have them deployed all over our plant. We use Brother labeling machines in every department. And we go through around 2,500 labels a day.
So what would happen? Let me ask you this. What would happen if you didn't have the proper labeling? It could be anything. It could be in your warehouse locations. It could be in your bin locations. It could be on, the actual machines that make the jerky. What would happen if you didn't have the proper labels on there?
So I'll tell you, because we are USDA certified factory, if we don't have the proper labels on our products, they can recall our products nationwide. So it is vital. It is vital to our production. It's vital to our sales and to our certifications and our SQF policies. If we have things mislabeled and we have things that are misprinted or are not labeled properly, then they can recall entire product lines. It is vital to our company. So our labeling process is vital to our company. And we did not have a solution to be able to print the amount of labels that we needed to and the quality we needed to until we found the Brother printers.
So were you using, and don't mention any names.
We were using a competitor. We were using a competitor, and that was working fine. But our production has grown to the point where that was no longer a viable option. And I wanted to find something that would. My whole thing is, anytime I'm an IT guy, as you know, and I want to make it easier on our employees. So if I can bring in technology that makes it easier and more efficient for our employees so they have a better day at work, then that's what I look for. And that's what we got with the Brother printers that we bought.
So really what you're saying is that without Brother labeling, Old Trapper would just, they go.
Hey man, you have to have labels, right? But I will say we don't use any fireworks, or I've seen you with a blowtorch on some labels. I've had to tell employees, okay, no blowtorches. This is not an option.
I'm glad you're a fan of the show. Yeah, that was a good episode. But what it means is that in a warehouse environment, now you're up in Oregon, And the weather is a little more conducive than, let's say, some of our next guests coming on board. But again, the labeling and the type of material, definitely, I told you that story about American Airlines when I was in Ecuador. And because of the heat and the humidity, those labels are falling off. And so, again, you're kind of, you don't have the worst weather, but, you need a strong label. And this is no sales pitch whatsoever. But I'm telling you, if you use the wrong product the first time, maybe the second time, it ends up costing you a lot of money. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it is. And if you can, Stuart, label stuff without mistakes at the speed of light and get those on whatever you're affixing them to, that's one less thing that you have to worry about. And there's also liability issues at hand too. You've got to label right. And without the right label, I mean, again, you open the door to all sorts of liability issues. So, Stuart,
one more nightmare that we have is for certain customers, we have to print labels on each box, and we're talking thousands of boxes. And so they have to have their own individual label on each box. And for each one that doesn't have the label properly is a fine. So if I can't print those labels at the speed I need to, and they stay adhered to the box, then it's fine for each one. And we have not had any issues since we switched to the Brother printers.
Good. Well, you know what? I appreciate you. I appreciate, all your endeavors, efforts, and I really appreciate your product. So thank you very much. So Stuart, keep that in mind. If you like Stuart's story, keep Stuart in mind. Vote at the end of this thing. We're going to go with Rich. Rich, you out there?
Yes, sir. How you doing, Todd?
I am tip-top peachy. Thank you very much. Appreciate you asking. So I know that, Rich, you're coming to us from New Mexico today, correct?
That's correct. I'm here at the University of New Mexico.
So we got University of New Mexico. Okay. All right. So what do you do there at UNM, Rich?
I work in the IT department. And we have 25,000 phones that we support in about 400 buildings. We have 4 large campuses, and UNM has approximately about 5,000 employees. We take care of the level 1 trauma center too, the UNMH hospital. They have about 7,000 employees, and they see about 900,000 outpatients a year. So during COVID, it's been here every single day, just like a lot of other people.
I am actually familiar with that hospital because my older brother, Sam, I went out there for his wedding, I think it was, and we were playing basketball, and, he's a dirty player to begin with, and he ended up checking me and then actually stepping on my ankle. So lo and behold, he broke my ankle, and the UNM Medical Center fixed me up before they put me on a plane. So I'm somewhat familiar with that particular campus. So listen, Rich, I appreciate you coming to us this morning or this afternoon, actually. So what do you got? What is your labeling nightmare story?
Well, like I submitted, it was about 20 years ago when I was down and dirty in the trenches, running construction jobs here, mostly at APS, Albuquerque Public Schools, which is about the 3rd largest school district in the country, believe it or not. We were working at several new construction jobs, but the first one that I got was a pretty big job. It was a high school. I had about 20 different guys on my crew, which included electricians, fiber guys, cable pullers, what have you. And we had a labeling system, 20 years ago. It was a little different. It's not as dynamic as it is now with, all the heat, the cold, the climate, stuff, the visual stuff, the things that you put in laboratories, the mobile labeling system. So we had a system at our office that was hooked up to a PC, Windows-based, and we would generate the labels there at the shop according to the as-builts. And what was very nice is the as-builts were tied into the labeling system on the Windows program we had, and it was a table. So anytime we added cable at any site, it would remember that we had that many cables. So when we went back out to the site 2 years later, we knew that we had to start with so-and-so number to add a cable. But in New Mexico, people don't understand that we are a desert, high mountain desert, a mile high. So the temperatures do change from sub-zero to over 100. during the 4 seasons we have here. So during the pulling of the cable at that job at the school, which had several TRs and probably like 900 drops, 50 micron fiber, it was dark and cold and dusty and dirty. So I had to make a system that would be in the field, implemented system-wide through the whole company. We would use alcohol to clean the cable before we put the wraparound labels on, and then we'd follow that up with some tape that we found. It was kind of like Scotch tape, but it was more like a labeling tape. So when we were pulling the cable, we would do that on every single cable on both ends. So we would keep, the labeling system going, because when you have 20 guys, there's going to be some mess ups. But if your labeling's good, there's less toning. Everybody knows that you don't want to be the guy with the toner toning everything out. You want to look like you know what you're doing. They had some cable tray too down the hallways at these new schools that we had the conduits from every room. And when you have the firewalls down both sides of the wall, you kind of lose track of where you're at. So we actually labeled the conduits as well. We would clean those off and put wraparounds on those too, so we knew where the cables went. Because like I said, I had too many guys to keep track of. I had to make it easy. So my whole day was labeling. I made binders with clear folded sheets in there that we stuck the labels in. And I could tell what was done every day just by looking at the book and saying, okay, this crew did this much because they took these labels and they're gone. So I would just sit in a room and label the faceplates and everything on site in the clean room and give everybody packages, Ziplocs of what they had to go do when it came time to terminate. And it worked out well. And the company started using that method from then on. That way we could keep track of things and you weren't losing labels or mislabeling things and stuff like that. But there is a twist to this story that it's been so long that I had to think about it, and it came to me last night, and it's very, very funny in a way. Towards the end of that project, the painters were already painting. It was almost time to trim out. We had big bundles of cable and the TRs and the MDFs and things like that wrapped up and tied up high. That's what I would do, to tie it up high so they didn't come and steal it. Sure. Well, that's just what happened. They came and cut all the cable out, all the TRs. And guess what? The police had some guys that were close to the job site in the desert, and that's what caught them, the labels on that cable, because they were labeled and the footage was identifiable from where it was cut to the cable. I didn't think about this till last night. They had extension cords in their truck. They had all the cable from the job site. They had pretty much everything. And it was actually the painters on the job site that did it. They broke into the building through the drywall. So
there's a reason. Obviously crime doesn't pay, and they're not the smartest people out there, those criminals. But, the takeaway on this is that 20 years ago, I was doing the same thing. We'd print everything off, or believe it or not, I was using these things. Remember these?
Yeah, the electrical labels. And then they had some cheap ones at Summit, the red dispensers that you could write on. I would follow up with those labels on top of a label.
So, we all did that 20 years ago, and we pre-printed stuff on the 8.5 by 11 sheets, or we, grab our $29 brother printer and print on the M tape. But, the issue is that 20 years ago, it was a different scenario in this business. There was lots of money to be made, and you can charge for that stuff. Where now, you want to be as efficient as possible to get in and get out. And even you guys at UNM, again, you guys have a bucket list a mile long of things to do. And one of the things you don't want to do is pay a whole lot of time and attention to labeling. You want to get one and done at the end of the day. So had we had our PTE 550 back in the day, which is this guy right here, the best thing about that unit, Rich, is that you could have taken that database and you could have put that database inside this printer and then basically select everything that you want to print. And again, I was a guy that would put everything in manila folders or, like you say, Ziploc baggies. But then if you think about it, you got the guys out in the field that, if the bag gets shaken up or, if they spill coffee on the manila folder, you got issues, and time is money. So, One of the things I like about your story, a couple of things is obviously the way that we did, you go retro, and I'm all about retro, back to the way labeling was done. I talk about it often on this show. But then, talking about, how you're doing stuff these days is completely different. So if somebody were to do what you did, and believe me, they're out there. I know, because I see them all the time. There are still people doing what you did and I did 20 years ago regarding labeling and putting them in, pre-cutting them in bags and stuff like that. But I don't think they realize all the time, the extra time.
That's why I defined it as a nightmare, because I was basically, instead of a lead technician watching the job, I was a labeler. Most of my day was labeling and documenting an as-built every day. And at the end of the day, starting a new list for tomorrow and then just watching people to make sure they're labeling things correctly. And it was meticulous, time-consuming efforts doing it.
And you know what? I'm sure you were paid handsomely for that, but at the end of the day, it cost your company a lot of money. So I'm glad things have progressed, although I do still see folks out there kind of doing it the old-fashioned way. So, Rich, I appreciate you getting on board this morning. I love the story about how they caught those guys because of the labels, caught the painters stealing the coppers. So that's fantastic. I'm going to have to use that one down the road. I'll reach out to you ahead of time. But Rich, I appreciate you getting on board, folks. Rich had a great story. So did Stuart. So if you want to vote for Rich, wait till the end of the show and cast your vote for Rich with UNM. So, Doug, I'm going to bring you on board here. Doug, where are you? You're Doug's somewhere in Nevada. Doug, let us know who you are, what you do, where you're at, and so forth and whatnot, and then we'll let you tell your story.
Okay. I work for the Nevada Department of Transportation out here in rural Nevada, where we also are above, Rich, above 6,500 to, so-and-so feet. So we have all these different climates that I go through. So I've been a big fan of Brother for a very long time because you guys have great products. So I'm also a radio technician, which is part of this process too. So we go to the mountaintops, we go, to the chain signs on the highways, to you name it. So we're a little bit all over the place.
So if a label were to come off, or if a label were to fade in the sun atop one of these tower units, I'm sure a lot of these tower units are not the easiest to get to. And that can, in itself, just to go up there for some labeling, on any type of, if there's an issue, if there's no label there, it creates some issues, obviously. But I was going through your story last night, and you got a couple of components to the story. So without further ado, Doug, it's all you.
Thank you. Well, one thing I will say with the quality of Brother products, because we only use, my team only uses those, but we had a contractor use another one, a competitor, and they weren't of the same quality. And we had our labeler, so we had to go through and redo theirs because of the fact they were fading, they were starting to come off. So I've not had that problem with the Brother one. So we always keep them with us an extra tape for that reason, because you never know what that's going to happen, and you don't want to not have it because it does take us hours to get to a site. And if you don't have something, to go all the way back for nothing. But for my story itself was many years ago. I was asked to help some of my coworkers, some military, in doing a relabeling and cleaning up a fiber hut, if you will, a big server room full of cables, which was a giant rat's nest mess of different colors, cables, and everything else. It wasn't supposed to be, but that's what they did. So we were there to fix it. So we'd gone into this room, and I didn't know how anything worked. I really didn't understand IP addresses or anything else. So I was there for mostly the manual labor part of it. So I didn't even understand to begin with. So he's trying to explain to me what's going on. Then he starts going through trying to trace where these cables are. We're trying to label. They did have labels, and they did have other labels, and those things were great in this austere environment we were in. And it was a pain in the butt to get them off. So we learned to recover them with another label. But where the nightmare for this story came is, as we're starting to go through these, hundreds of cables, is we realized, I didn't realize this was a mistake because, again, not understanding how things worked, but my coworker turned pale and goes, "Oh crap." And we go, "Well, what?" He shows me, and I didn't understand what he was talking about. So he goes, "There's only 3 sets of numbers here." I said, "Okay." And he goes, "Well, there's supposed to be 4. Okay, well, I didn't Okay, so he explained that to me. I'm like, oh, that's not very good. Well, this should be easy to figure out, right? He goes, no, because we didn't know which octet was missing. And then the third ended up being the third octet. So then trying to figure out where this whole labeling came from, how to ping it all, how to figure out what was what, because the guys who set it up didn't know. The guys who labeled it didn't know, or at least the main one, he just started telling them what to do. So the guys print off these hundreds of labels, were just doing what they were told, but not realizing it was wrong. And the guy didn't check it afterwards. So this is now, we're late into the first day. We went into the second day and we've made a little bit of progress, but not much. So we're trying, because we can't even tell where these cables go as we're tracing, trying to relabel what we think they should go. My boss comes in and goes, what are you guys doing? This should have been a quicker job than this. What's going on? And then we explain to him and he just turns pale and like speechless, which is big for him. And then he leaves. I'm like, okay, well, thanks. That was very, very helpful for you not being there to give us the support or guidance. But he ended up coming in later, like about 6 hours later, with a plan to try to fix this, way to speed it up, some more help, asked us what we did. But I appreciated them labeling these things, but I'm not sure it would have been better if they weren't labeled at all, or just that they're labeled incorrectly, and then trying to do all the tracing, we didn't have Angry IP Scanner, if you know what that is, to try to figure out how to even figure out what the heck anything was. So it was a much worse project than could have been. We wasted so much tape. I think we filled like using stuff that should have been labeled right the first time, but we ended up filling like 2 trash cans full of the backing of the tape, and then the tape we cut off and everything else. It was a nightmare that still, cursed me to this day. But the funny part is I saw how it happened. I was doing a job, same thing, labeling stuff going through, and I messed up on that third octet, and I'd gone through. It ended up being that the third octet and the fourth ended up being the same number. So it didn't click to me. Okay, I just got to fix that one number. And then I went back and started doing the rest and everything else. And I was about like 40 or 50 into it when I realized, oh crap, I just did the same thing that guy did. But thankfully, I know I did the work. I was able to quickly resolve and fix it. But
it might have been better, Doug. I'm going back to what you said, not even labeling to begin with, because if you guys did all that tone and tag identification, then you have the labor to take off the old label. First of all, you had labor to put on that first label that was wrong. You got to tone and tag. You got to remove that label, which is labor. Then you got to reprint another label. So you probably would have been better off not labeling. But I mean, hindsight's always 20/20. Exactly. Believe me, I'm reminded of that. My wife 3 times a day reminds me of that. So hindsight is always 20/20. So man, it sounds like you got your butt handed to it on that job.
I learned very quickly how to learn my job and how this all works. So it was a very good learning experience.
Well, you know what? I appreciate your story here today. That definitely was a horror story. And again, people don't realize the effort that goes into labeling and what it takes to do it right the first time. They really don't. They just think, it's a sticker. Well, it's not just a sticker. It's got to stay on there a very long time, but it's got to be the right label too. You got to do it. You got to think about this stuff. And that's where I think a lot of companies still go wrong to this day. They just don't think about it. They'll put an ancillary number into an RFP or an RFQ, thinking, it's going to be this amount, but they're really not thinking about, okay, is there going to be mistakes? How do I minimize those mistakes? What's the best material to use? Blah, 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 blah. So anyway, that's where Brother comes in to help it. Listen, I want to thank you, Doug, for coming on board this morning. I want to thank NDOT. I want to thank Old Trapper, and I want to thank University of New Mexico. So, Doug, I appreciate it. We're going to get to the voting and what's coming up next week. So stay tuned, and please, folks, stick around. Let's vote for the best horror story out there. So without further ado, we're at 10:28, so we're going to try and wrap this up in the next 5 minutes. We may go over for a few minutes, but do me a favor. Get out there, cast a vote. You got Doug with NDOT, which he had an octet problem. You got Stewart out there doing his old jerky and the importance of what it takes and the ramifications if it's not right. And then we got Rich out there, which just went through hell on some school districts out in New Mexico. So listen, there's your boys right there. We got Stuart, we got Rich, we got Doug. Again, thank you very much. Keep voting. I'm going to go through some of the attributes of the next show. I'm going to try and wrap this up in about 3 minutes. So you got about 3 minutes. Keep it going. So Kate, if you would, let's talk about, so July 29th, we have a new partnership we're going to talk about, and I'm very excited about this. This is very near and dear to my little black heart. I've been working diligently on this. I know my bosses are watching, but we've been working on this for quite a while, and I'm very, very pleased. And we're going to get some folks on here, and we're going to make a big announcement, and we're going to launch this thing at I think Bixie, and it's going to be a really good thing. It's going to save you a lot of time and money. And so, with that being said, on the August 12th to be determined, I'm actually going to expense an all-paid trip. All expense paid trip to Puerto Rico for myself. I've done such a great job with BS with Todd. I figure the company won't mind. So I'm actually going to Puerto Rico next week. And then the week after, I'm headed out to Colorado for a little R&R and then to shoot some videos also. So we'll come up with something between now and the 12th to get out there. And who knows, it may be another contest. I think this went over pretty well. So if you need to contact us, Kate, would you go ahead and throw that up there? So I'm Todd Morse, obviously. I'm out in Vista, California. We got Mr. Jamie Brookover out in Virginia Beach. We got Dan Cobb, who's somewhere in Wisconsin. You got Mr. Bruce Page, who's in Marblehead, Massachusetts. Bruce, I think that's the second time I've ever got that correct. So anyway, Bruce is out there. If you need some bad advice, just contact Bruce. He's full of it. Mr. Rob Dawkins is in North Carolina. Then our glorious leader, Mr. Craig Robinson, hails out of Bradenton, Sarasota, Florida. And so I sincerely hope all the Californians are going to come out there and just desecrate your state. I really do. They're headed that way. So with that being said, let's go back to the voting screen, Kate. And I think we have the boys up there. So we got Doug, Stuart, and Rich out there. Kate, I'm going to go ahead. It's 10:31. We've got this a minute over. So wait a minute. I think I've got results here. Kelly just messaged me. And okay, all right. So in third place, all right, and then we'll go from bottom to top. So in third place, we have. I'm not going to screw this up for us. So 1 and the 2. First place goes to Rich. Rich, congratulations. All right. Second place, we got Mr. Doug. Mr. Doug in second place. Wait, I didn't go. Anyway, Rich came in first. Doug came in second. Stuart came in third. And so, Rich, congratulations. Rich, congratulations. All right. Stuart, congratulations. Now, here's one of the other things that I'm going to do for you all is that we got Rich coming first place, Doug in second, and we've got Mr. Stewart in third. So here's what I'm going to do is, Rich, you get the Yeti. Second place, all right? Second place, you're both going to get printers, all right?
Awesome.
And, yeah, you're going to get a PTE 550 printer back here. I've got plenty to go around, and I know
Nice.
Yeah. No, I know for Doug and Stuart, you may mention the other day when I talked to you about you're talking some of these handhelds. Well, we're going to start you off right. We're going to start you off with the top printer out there on the market today. It's a PTE 550. That's my shameless pitch for Brother Product this morning. So congratulations to y'all. Thank you very much for coming on board. We got a Yeti winner. We got a couple of PTE 550. And all of you guys, fantastic stories. I appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in with BS with Todd. Tell your friends. And you know what? You guys have, let's see, once we unlive, there will be a bit of lag, but please stay on. And okay, so anyway, Kate, thank you. I get these little pop-up screens. I don't know if you guys knew that. You guys can see it, but they all message me, and I'm terrible at multitasking. So anyway, with that being said, thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate all the votes. Thank you guys very much. Your gifts are on the way. Stuart, I'll reach out to you. Doug, I'll reach out to you. In fact, Kate will probably reach out to everyone to grab where to send all the goodies to. But thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Congrats.
All right, guys. Be good.